Are you looking for all the latest pro football news and content? Of course you are. Who doesn't love football? The question is, how do you get all the latest pro football news and content? There's so many different pro football podcasts on the internet. Which one do you choose? Which one is the right fit for you? Well, you go with the Cross the Middle Show, one of the fastest growing football podcasts out right now. Over the past year, we've climbed the Spotify rankings, become a show you have to listen to if you're a football fan. Find out the Ravens will go all the way with Odell Beckham Jr. Find out the Eagles did enough to make it back to the Super Bowl. You'll get all of our best stories for just $1 per month. All you have to do is sign up by clicking the link in the episode description box. Welcome back to the Cross the Middle Show. It's your host, John Kuzma, where we discuss all the latest pro football news and content. We got two stories for you guys today, like we always do. We got the Kenny Pickett story. We're also going to talk about Tua Tagovailoa. So let's start with Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett is the big winner of this preseason. You look at all these players, a lot of 2s and 3s are getting run, but, we've seen a little bit of the starters, and out of the starters, I think Kenny Pickett has been the big winner. Remember, he did a good job when he threw that touchdown to George Pickens right over the middle of the field. George Pickens set the safety up, then burned the safety, went for a touchdown. Well, Kenny Pickett's at it again. This time, he threw a laser right down the middle of the field, threaded the needle to Pat Freiermuth for a touchdown, and it's like, okay, this Kenny Pickett guy is really starting to step up for the Steelers. And, when you have these starters in the game, they have to be the strong point for their team. If you have a starter come in and he looks weak playing against, competition in the preseason where these other teams might give some of their 2s or 3s the start just to give these guys a look, because they want to experiment and see what they can get away with and see what guys can step up and seize the moment in the preseason, find out who needs a promotion or who needs to be demoted. That's what these coaches are doing in the preseason. They're not, too worried about winning the game with their starters. Obviously, they're competitive and they always want to win, but these guys are trying to win with their second and third string players. So your starters have to be a strong point for your team when they're in during the preseason, because if your starters are flopping against second and third stringers, maybe your starters aren't as strong as you thought they were. Well, Kenny Pickett has been certainly a strength for the Steelers. Like I said, I think he's showed the most promise out of all the starters that have really got some action in this preseason. Some of these, we're going to talk about another starter who showed some weakness in the preseason coming up next. Kenny Pickett hasn't been that guy. He's been great. He sees his opportunities in the preseason. I don't know why the Steelers are still playing him at this point. I wouldn't have played him after that touchdown to George Pickens. I would have said that's all we've seen from you, Kenny Pickett. Obviously, they want him to be up to speed. They want him to get as many reps as he can before the season, just because, he's taken over the team full-time now, going to be, like I said, the full-time starter. So they just want to make sure he's ready to go when it's his time. Well, he just keeps throwing touchdowns every time he gets in the game, just keeps stepping up. And, I think Kenny Pickett is heading for a huge jump in his second season as a starter. I think you can feel the excitement with the Steelers. I think they know that they have something at the quarterback position, because that throw to Pat Freiermuth, that was a nice throw right down the middle of the field, right between those Bills defenders. Pat Freiermuth gets in for a touchdown, throws the dab after that. Between George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Kenny Pickett is he's throwing the football well, and he's got these weapons that are able to make him look good too, and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. So it all seems to be coming together for the Steelers offense, and Kenny Pickett's at the center of all of it. He's certainly doing his fair share when it comes to bringing this whole thing to life. Second-year player and clearly heading for a big jump. Like I said, a guy that is kind of proven that he can be, a strong point for this team, and he can be relied on as the quarterback of this team, you're already starting to get vibes that this guy is the real deal, that the Steelers got it right when they decided to draft him in the first round. There's still some quarterbacks till this day, you're kind of wondering, hey, did they get it right? Kind of like the guy we're going to talk about next. Did the Dolphins get it right when they drafted Tua Tagovailoa? Justin Herbert was clearly a better choice. That's a good sign for the Steelers because you don't feel that way about Kenny Pickett. You're not saying, oh, they should have went in a different direction or they should have picked someone else just because it would have helped the team. Maybe they should have held off on quarterback. No, you're not saying that at all. You're sitting here like this Kenny Pickett guy is starting to blow us away because the guy just keeps throwing touchdowns. He keeps throwing touchdowns and he keeps making plays for the Steelers offense. I know it's the preseason, but hey, I'm excited, and I'm not even a Steelers fan. I respect the Steelers. They have a great history. They have a great tradition. I've always admired the Steelers, but I'm not necessarily a fan of the Steelers. And I'm excited about the direction that their team is heading. So if they can win me over as someone who doesn't necessarily tune into Steelers games, who just kind of watches them from afar and, kind of gets excited for them when they're playing well. I was excited for the Steelers when they had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and, they had all these athletes all over the field that were starting to, put it all together. Now I'm getting excited again for the Steelers because I like what Kenny Pickett brings to the table. I like what George Pickens did against that safety when he got in the open field after Kenny Pickett gave him the ball. I like what Pat Freiermuth did, running down the seam against the Bills in that preseason game, in this preseason game, I should say. So, great work by Kenny Pickett. I mean, he's throwing the ball, getting it to his playmakers, throwing the ball on a line, putting some zip on his throws. He looks like an NFL quarterback. I think that's the biggest thing. People were, really hating on his hand size and acting like he wasn't cut out for the NFL. I don't think that's the case now. Kenny Pickett is delivering for the Steelers. The other story we have is the Tua Tagovailoa story. And as good as Kenny Pickett has been, I'm starting to have some concerns with Tua Tagovailoa. He throws an interception on the very first play against the Houston Texans, and I think it was Denzel Perryman got to his drop. It was right in front of Tagovailoa's face, and he just threw it right to the defender. It was basically a gimme, and I just don't know how he didn't see that linebacker get into his drop right in front of his face, throws it right to him on the very first play, and you start to kind of understand what's going on here. Tua Tagovailoa is getting carried by the weapons around him. He's getting carried by Tyreek Hill. He's getting carried by Jalen Waddle. And yeah, he's able to just throw it deep and let those guys run under his passes and has some success because all he's got to do is throw it out in front of those guys. But at some point, Tua Tagovailoa has to match the level that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are playing at, and I think it's not happening. I think he's just being carried by Hill and Waddle, and I think those guys are really stepping their game up and, beating all these secondaries deep, outrunning everybody, turning every game into a track meet, and they're making it easy on their quarterback. But at some point, I guess you can say, Tua Tagovailoa has to really step up and, deliver on his end. And I know there was moments where we could see it. He had the nice comeback against the Ravens, had some strong points this past season, but they need to be a playoff team. They need to be contending for Super Bowls. I mean, they have weapons. They have the pieces to be competitive. And Tua Tagovailoa doesn't have any excuses because when this team got him Tyreek Hill and paired up Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I mean, those are two big-time weapons to be thrown to to the point where, there's no excuses for Tua Tagovailoa. And it's not just his play on the field either. There's other concerns too. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be on the field for all 17 games? Is he going to be there when the team needs him the most? When it's crunch time and, they need to win a big game and, maybe the playoffs are on the line. Is he going to be able to step up and is he going to be healthy in those moments? So it's not just his play. We're worried about him, with the concussions. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be there when the team needs him? Those are all legitimate concerns with Tua Tagovailoa. And it's getting to the point where we have so many concerns with him. It's like, okay, is this working out? Is it really working out, or is he just getting carried by his wide receivers and it appears that he's, stepping up and having some bright moments? Because we might be distracted. Can you imagine some of the other quarterbacks in the league? They had those weapons to throw to. Those numbers might be so off the charts that, we could be talking about an MVP candidate, and Tua Tagovailoa, I don't know. I don't know. I'm starting to have some concerns. I see some red flags. I don't know. I don't know if he's cut out for it in so many different ways. Is he good enough to put up the big numbers and, really light it up to get this team to the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game or two and, really generate some excitement where this team keeps building on the momentum they have? I have my doubts. Can he stay healthy for all 16 games or 17 games? Excuse me. I have my doubts. Is he capable of getting the other guys involved? The guys that aren't a total mismatch, because Hill and Waddle are mismatches. They're going to burn whoever they line up against just because they're so fast. Can Tua Tagovailoa get the other guys involved and make sure they're chipping in to bring this whole thing to life, to make it a functioning offense that gets contributions from everybody opposed to just Hill and Waddle? Because, if you had Tom Brady in this offense, the number 3 and the number 4 wide receiver and the tight ends are going to be getting involved. Can Tua Tagovailoa do those things too? Can he get through his progressions and get the 3rd and 4th wide receiver and the tight ends involved? I mean, that's a big part of it too. Can he conduct the whole offense as a whole and do a good job of executing in that regard? Those are the questions we need answers to with Tua Tagovailoa. But I'll tell you what, going back to the point about starters having to be a strength for your team. When Tua comes out and throws a pick on the very first play in the preseason, what kind of message does that send? It sends a message that our starter at quarterback isn't that strong. He's not that good. He should be able to dominate in the preseason. Because if he's a really good starter, he should be able to have success in the regular season, let alone the preseason. He should have success in the regular season. And if you're a really great player, you have success in the postseason when the competition is even more stiff. Could Tua Tagovailoa get to the playoffs and have success in the playoffs when the competition is more stiff? I don't know. He's having trouble in the preseason. Preseason is easier than the regular season. Postseason is tougher than the regular season. So if he's struggling in the preseason and throwing an interception on the very first play to a linebacker that it was obvious, but he was oblivious to it, that's not a good sign. It wasn't like they disguised the coverage and it was a great job by the defensive coordinator drawing something up where, a safety dropped underneath in a cover 3 like he doesn't usually do. Usually the safety's over top. He dropped underneath and the defensive coordinator baited him. That's not what happened. It was a linebacker dropping to his hook zone. blatantly obvious drop into his hook zone, which happens on most zone plays. The linebackers get to their drops. That's a play you should see so many times in practice. A linebacker get into his drop. I mean, you see that almost on every single zone play. And Tua Tagovailoa throws it right to, who was it, Denzel Perryman? It's tough. It's tough to see from your quarterback if you're the Dolphins. He's obviously getting ridiculed online. I don't know if he's cut out for the regular season. I definitely don't think he's cut out for the postseason. If he makes it to the playoffs when these defenses are tougher and those windows are smaller, he's going to get beat up on, not only from a passing perspective. He's going to get beat on physically, and we don't know if he can hold up and stay healthy. There's a lot of red flags for Tua Tagovailoa. This could be the year that we see him get exposed. It's going to be a big, big year for Tua Tagovailoa. Can he step up and, kind of get us back on the bandwagon and make sure that we believe in him again? Or are the concerns going to keep growing? And that's going to be it for Tua Tagovailoa, because the Dolphins are going to wake up and realize they need to get better at the quarterback position. We'll find out soon. That's all I got for this latest episode of the Cross the Middle Show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm John Kuzma. Sign up for $1 per month by clicking the link in the episode description box. Thank you guys so much. I'm signing off.